Welcome to Movies We Love. Today we will look at a thriller entitled Zombie. We begin with an apparently abandoned sailboat as it sails into New York Harbor. Two officers of the Harbor Patrol board the boat to investigate. The quarters below deck are in a horrible mess. They are suddenly attacked by a rotting zombie, which bursts from the hold, killing one officer by biting his throat out. The second officer shoots the corpse, which falls overboard into the harbor. A local reporter, named Peter West, is assigned to the case. That evening he meets up with Anne, the daughter of the boat's missing owner. Anne has informed the police that she has not seen her father for the past 3 months, since he traveled to the Antilles. Meanwhile at the morgue, the pathologist and his assistant are preparing to perform an autopsy on the dead police officer. When unknown to them, the dead body begins stirring. The next morning, Peter and Anne fly to the Dominican Republic. They meet an American tourist couple named Brian and Susan, who are about to embark on a sailing tour of the Caribbean. Peter and Anne ask for help getting to the island of MacLeod, where Anne's father was last seen. The couple agree, and the four of them set off together for the island. On MacLeod, tensions between Dr. Menard and his wife Paula are running high. She wants to leave the island, terrified about reports of zombie attacks. He insists on staying to conduct research into the phenomenon, despite the fact that his medical mission is falling apart. He leaves her alone to drink her fears away at their isolated beach house. At sea, Susan goes on a scuba dive. Under the water she is attacked, first by a shark. She hides from the shark, but is then attacked by an underwater zombie. Susan is able to fight off the corpse and get away. That evening, Paula is alone in the house where she takes a shower to cool off in the hot and humid weather. Suddenly she hears a noise. A walking corpse is trying to get into the house. She keeps it out by holding and locking the door. It continues trying to get in. As she struggles to barricade herself into her bedroom, the zombie smashes its arm through the door and grabs her by her hair. Her head is slowly pulled onto the shattered door frame, and she dies a horrible death as her right eye is impaled on a spike of wood. The next morning, Anne, Peter, Brian, and Susan arrive off the coast of Matul, where they find out that their boat has been damaged. They anchor in a bay off the island and send up distress flares. Dr. Menard answers their distress call. On the drive back to the hospital, Menard tells his 4 visitors that Anne's father died 3 months earlier from the strange disease plaguing the island. The doctor then asks the 4 travelers to drive over to his beach house and check on the safety of his wife. Dr. Menard looks at his friend, Fritz, who claims he was bitten by a zombie in the village. Menard orders Lucas to lock all the doors and windows, now aware that the zombies are approaching this end of the island. Meanwhile, Peter, Anne, Brian, and Susan arrive without incident at the Menard cottage, and upon entering they make a horrific discovery. The dead body of Mrs. Menard is sprawled out outside the bedroom door, half-eaten, surrounded by a small group of zombies who are gorging on her remains. Revolted, they fight their way past a group of slow-moving, staggering zombies and drive back to the hospital. But on the road, a zombie wanders into their path, and the jeep is damaged as they swerve into the dense tropical undergrowth. Peter's left ankle is broken upon the impact, but the group decide they must make it back to the hospital. A little later, the group stops for a rest in a small jungle clearing which they see as an old cemetery for the Spanish conquistadors. As Peter and Anne lie down on the ground for a rest, the buried conquistadors emerge from the soil. One of them grabs Anne by her hair while another grabs Peter by his broken ankle. The 2 of them break free, but Susan is not so lucky. Frozen in terror by the sight of a large, worm-faced cadaver, she dies as it bites her throat out. Brian shoots it several times, to no effect. Finally, Peter bashes the creature's head in. The 3 survivors are now obliged to make the journey back to the hospital as the living dead erupt from their tombs all over the island. It's a sickening sight, as we see grotesque and ancient bodies rising up from the ground, to once again walk the earth. At nightfall, Anne, Peter, and Brian finally arrive back at the hospital. A horde of corpses slowly shuffle behind, coming closer and closer to the hospital. Brian helps Lucas and the nurse barricade the doors and windows. Suddenly, a large group of the staggering corpses try to batter down the boarded-up front door. The zombies then begin to circle around the hospital. Corpses try coming in through the windows. The group begin to make Molotov cocktails from the kerosene tanks. Suddenly Dr. Menard is killed when he gets his face bitten by the zombie Fritz. Before it's killed by Brian with a gunshot to the head, the only way of killing the reanimated cadavers. The mob of zombies finally breaks down the front door. A climactic battle between the 3 survivors and the walking cadavers begins, with fire apparently a very effective weapon against the slow-moving corpses. With the hospital now on fire from the exploding Molotov cocktails, the roof begins to collapse. It's getting hotter and more dangerous. Finally, the 3 are forced to flee from the burning building out the back door. But outside, Brian comes face to face with the walking corpse of the resurrected Susan. He succumbs to emotion and gets badly bitten on his arm as a result. The zombie Susan is immediately shot and killed by Peter, and the trio run for the beach with some zombies not far behind. As dawn breaks, the damaged boat limps back out to sea. Brian sinks into unconsciousness, terminally sick from the zombie bite, and soon dies. Peter and Anne lock the dead Brian up in the boat's cabin, for Peter wants the dead Brian as proof to the authorities that the whole experience happened. Turning on the radio, Peter and Anne listen in disbelief as a radio announcer explains about a zombie epidemic gripping New York City. In New York City, a long line of freshly dead zombies are seen, slowly marching across the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more movies like this, hit the like and subscribe button to be notified when I upload a new video.